Greetings, friends. We have another show today about the often, well, let's call it chronically boring world of artificial intelligence and how it connects to marketing. And there's nobody on earth, I don't think, is more qualified to talk about this than my friend Paul Roetzer. Paul, of course, is the founder of the Marketing AI Institute. He and Mike Kaput do an amazing job on their AI podcast, the artificial intelligence podcast. If you find it, I mean, it's a can't miss. And Paul, I gotta say, I listen to the show every week, and I did a lot of traveling, a lot of driving this week, and I was in California, going from place to place as you do out there. And so to keep up with you this week, not only did I have to listen to one episode, I had to listen to two episodes. So, dude, you gotta, have a little mercy on us.
It was such a crazy week. I literally on Friday, I said to Mike, I was like, I don't know how to either we're doing a 2.5 hour episode or we're gonna break this into two. And everybody on the team voted for break it into two. So I was like, all right, let's
Yeah,
let's do that. And we left a lot on the cutting table. Like, I mean, there was plenty more
yeah,
we could
sure.
have done, and it was 2 hours and 20 minutes between the two episodes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I listen every minute of it. And if you're not familiar with the podcast, I mean, for me, it's just something that you have to listen to these days. I mean, Mike and Paul do such an amazing job, not just reporting on what's going on, but really connecting the dots and interpreting, what's happening. And especially like Paul, how you guys connect the dots between, some of the angst and drama and politics of the players involved. That's always a lot of fun.
It's the fun part. Yeah, I mean, it
It
really
is
is a
fun.
soap opera. It's
It
it's
is.
crazy. I joke about
It's
that on the show all the time, but it truly just feels like a soap opera.
it's like boys with toys. It's boys with
Yeah,
toys, And
yeah.
so before we get into it, I want to remind everyone that our show is brought to you by Revo. I mean, they've been so kind. I think they're in their third year as a sponsor of our show. And look, in a world where marketing encompasses the entire customer experience, every customer touch point, Brevo puts the focus on lasting relationships with real people. It's a CRM system for everyone. I love it. It's so easy to use. We've had hundreds of Marketing Companion listeners, give this a try. And look, you've got nothing to lose because you can try it for free. Just go to brevo.com/marketing companion and give it a try. And if you like it and you want to sign up for the business version, use the promo code companion to get 50% off your first 3 months. So, Paul, obviously, the big news these days is DeepSeek, but I'm going to
Mhm.
hold off. You're probably tired of that by now. So I thought I'd, you know, give you some other tidbits to, when whenever I listen to your show, I literally pause it and send messages to myself. Like, you mentioned a few times the AI leaderboard, right? Where, someone's actually testing these things to see who's ahead. So I always learn something. And you get me thinking. I'll send voice messages to myself. Hey, think about this a little bit. So one of the things that I've been pondering is, I mean, I love thinking about where all this is going to end up. Well, it's not going to end anywhere. Let's put it that way. I mean, there's no end to this journey. It's just continuous development. But I think one of the implications is this idea of a decline in cognitive abilities. And the way I think about it is this way. So, you and I mean, I'm a little older than you, but I mean, you probably remember the days when calculators were introduced to the world. And before that, you had to go to math class, you had to do long math. And now math surrounds us like the air that we breathe. It's embedded into everything. We don't really need to know how to do math. And the other example I think about is like when you're married, you sort of like split duties. So like my wife does the taxes, so I don't need to learn how to do the taxes anymore. It scares me a little Because if I had to do the taxes, I haven't done them for so long, I wouldn't even know where all the records are. Now, think about AI. AI is not just having access to math, it's having access to endless, perfect, profound intelligence. And I was interested, I saw the first study that I've seen. I don't know if you've seen anything more on this, Paul, but there was a study in Switzerland that actually showed that frequent use of AI led to cognitive decline, especially with younger people aged 17 to 25. They showed a higher dependence on AI tools and lower critical thinking scores compared to older age groups. And they did show that going to college made a difference. If you had a college degree, that correlated positively with critical thinking skills. Now, I mean, this is early days, and this is
Mhm.
the first study that I've seen, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think I talked to a lot of schools about this exact concept because as you know, a lot of the universities, high schools, middle schools, they're trying to figure out how to integrate AI, and I think they're increasingly coming around to accepting that they have a responsibility to teach AI because the career paths these students are going to go into, whether it's in 1 year or 8 years, like they're going to be working with AI, so you got to teach it. But if you don't teach it in a responsible way, then it will be just like the calculator or the internet, where I just take the answers it gives me and I regurgitate them. So this is why I always tell school leaders, you don't have a choice. Like they're going to
Right,
use AI one way or
right.
the other. So either you train them how to do it in a responsible way where they still develop critical thinking and they still learn how to problem solve, or they're just going to do it behind your back. And so I could absolutely see a study where people who haven't been trained how to use AI in a responsible way, where they still develop their own cognitive abilities, will have a decline. um, and the people who are trained to use it in a responsible way to augment what they're capable of will see improvements. So, like my daughter's 13, she has a ChatGPT account, and I'm training her how to use it as a creative writing assistant and in many ways like a teacher. And so, as she's developing her story ideas and her characters, I'm trying to work with her to teach her how to let it inspire her creativity, not replace it. And it's a tricky balance. And but I think that's why it's so important that schools understand the technology, like teach the teachers. I'm always talking about that, like drive literacy of the teachers, because they're the ones who have to be the shepherds of AI in their classrooms. And right now they're just being told, you decide if you're going to use it or not. Like we allow it as a university, we allow it as a school, but like it's on you whether you use it in your classroom. I don't think that's the right approach because they haven't been taught yet what it is, how to use it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I could see that study being true. I could also see the opposite being true if people were taught responsible use of it.
Yeah, I was recently asked to contribute to a Pew Research study on how AI will impact the essence of humanity. And
Okay.
like I really had to think a lot about that. And I came up with a really weird thought. And it's going to be non obvious, I think.
Okay.
So if you so what we're thinking about, what we're talking about right now is how AI is changing the world, and we have to be discerning around information and how information is used and what information is being fed to us, and what does it really mean for our cognitive abilities. Well, if you think about the essence of humanity over most of our history, you didn't really need to be that discerning. I mean, you had a lot of you didn't consume a lot of content. You worked on a farm, you worked in a mine, you harvested, you repaired clothes, you gathered wood for your fire, and that's most of our existence. So is that humanity? Are we going to have this overseer that's going to do most of the stuff that we weren't really meant to do anyway?
Yeah. Isn't that what's that Pixar movie or the Disney movie where the all the humans are just on a spaceship and AIs do everything for them and they just sit
Oh, I
around
don't
getting
know
lazy.
that.
Oh yeah, there's a
No.
it
See, you
wasn't
got
Wally, was I think it might have been Wally.
yeah, see, my kids are grown, so I'm out of touch
Okay.
with that stuff these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the risk we run is that we like lose sight of what matters on the human side. And
Yeah.
I think about this a lot because I do think that there's going to be a transformation of the future of work. Like, I think jobs are going to change. I think what people currently find fulfillment in is going to change. There's going to be, yeah, increasingly will be able to do the tasks that make up your job. And in some cases, it's going to keep getting better and better at those tasks and maybe better than you at things that you thought you were pretty good at. And I think we're all just going to kind of come to these realizations at different times where we have to like figure out what is it that gives us purpose? What is it about my job that actually means something to me versus just the fact that someone needs me to come and do this job each day?
Yeah.
And so I think that the definition of what is human and what matters to us is probably going to keep evolving like it, always has. I think it's just going to move a little faster than it has when we've had these other technological advancements. This one's going to come pretty quick. And I think there's going to be pockets of society that do struggle to
Mhm.
adapt. And in the way of like, what is my purpose here if I'm not valued in my job?
Yeah, well, and that's such a huge part of our psychology and our self-worth, especially,
Yeah.
in our society. So let's sort of move into another topic that I think kind of builds on this in a way, and that's this idea of personal agents.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, something look, it's coming. It's going to be big. And I recently saw a presentation. I'm not going to say the person who did it, but obviously this person is an investor in agents and is an advocate for agents. And he said, oh, just think, you're gonna you're gonna have these things. They can order pizza for you, and they could get your Uber for you, and they could do all these things. I'm thinking, for the amount of time, I mean, it doesn't take any time really to order an Uber or order a pizza these days, right? So it's like it's sort of gimmicky, but the but the bigger concern that I have is do you know Dory Clark?
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably know Dory. You
Yeah.
probably crossed paths. So I was talking with Dory a couple months ago, and I we were talking about AI agents, and I said, well, to really participate in that world, you're going to have to give up everything. You're going to have to give up your passport information, your credit card information, all your personal information. And I said, I just don't know if I'm ready for that. She said, I'm all in. I'm all in. And it's sort of makes me think about I mean, I think there's going to be useful, good use cases for agents in the corporate world. But on a personal level, isn't it interesting to think about? And this kind of goes back to this definition of humanity thing, that the people who are willing to just give it up, to let go, to abdicate, everything in your personal life to a computer program, they may have like almost superhuman capabilities, especially when it comes to productivity. It's sort of another nuanced idea around how AI can create haves and have-nots.
Yeah. And I think there's just like a lot of hype right now about agents and misunderstanding of like what they actually are and where they are in the,
Yeah.
spectrum of being able to do everything you just talked about. And I also think there's this element of like solutions in search of a problem. I'm with
Mhm.
you. Like, I don't have a problem using Uber. Like, I don't mind taking the 10 seconds to go in and click two buttons. Like, I really don't need Surrey to do that for me. Like, that's not going to change my life. And so I think a lot of these examples that you see of like, oh yeah, it goes on and orders this thing or it does this thing online, it takes over my computer. It's like, I don't need that. Like, there's nothing you're doing there that is actually valuable to me.
Yeah.
But I think where the agents become truly valuable is more of like the vertical AI agents, where there's going to be a little bit more human in the loop, connecting data sources, doing some like if then, some rules setting, and then the thing is going to like autonomously do the middle part. It's going to execute the thing it's been told to execute, and it's going to kind of it's just like an evolution of automation, but now with Gen AI baked into it, and it's able to do a little bit more and some reasoning. So it's not going to be deterministic, like not everything it does you've defined the 20 steps. It's like, hey, I want to do this thing, and I'd like to figure out which audience to go after, and here's some data to work with. Now go do your thing, AI agent. And it goes through all these, chain of thought, and it kind of maybe does some research, and it searches the web, and it looks in your databases, and then it comes back and says, hey, I built you a plan. That's a helpful agent. Like if you've tried Google Deep Research, I think that's a good example of like an agentic experience and what you're going to start to see. You could make some arguments that like a custom GPT is like a form of an agent. It's just an AI system that takes actions to achieve a goal. It's kind of like the simplistic term. The computer use stuff where it takes over your computer or your screen, I just don't know that I mean in an enterprise, the things you highlighted is why there's no way that's getting adopted anytime soon. There's
Mm,
so many risks and uncertainties and security challenge with allowing an agent to have access to your accounts and your credit card and your financial systems. I just don't see it. Like I don't
no,
see AI
just
agent
yeah.
adoption in enterprises in
Hmm.
that sense where it's taking over your computer. I
Yeah.
think, and I think technologically we're just a ways away from that, but you're going
Hmm.
to start to see more and more agents baked in. And I think, on your device, your mobile devices might be where you start to trust it a little bit more. It's like, well, Apple
Hmm.
already has access to everything. And so if Apple actually figures out what Apple Intelligence is going to be when it grows up and it's something more than what it currently is, I could see that like talking to it and it's like it goes into my Starbucks app and it orders it because I'm already connected to Apple Pay, and
Hmm.
there's little risk for me there, but I'm with you. Like I just don't see the personal assistant thing where I just talk to it for everything and I trust it to have access. I don't see that being something in the
Yeah.
near
I,
term.
I I think where it'll be really great for me is there's this middle space where I mean there are things I need to do on my in my world where it has to be me.
Yeah.
There are things in my world where I can delegate. Then there's like this middle space where I have to do something, but it's really not the best use of my time. I can't delegate it, but it kind of needs to be me. That's the space. And I had high hopes really for Copilot. And it's I don't think it's there yet, but that's where I think it's going to be really useful. And the other thing I predicted, I don't think I wrote this down anywhere, but so maybe it's like a private prediction. I, I think by the end of 2025, we're going to see some company that's going to demonstrate that you can run a company all through agents. Might be small, might be sort of low risk, but there's so much hype about this stuff. I think someone's going to just want to try something bold and say, okay, look at this. Our whole company's being run by these bots now. I mean, what do you think? Have you heard anything
I
about that yet?
I could see someone claiming something like that, and then it
Yeah.
turns out to be DeepSeek, where there's a little bit more to the
Yeah.
story than I built an agent for $100 and I, made $1 billion. And then you realize that that's not exactly what happened. So I don't know. Like I think that you can increasingly see by the end of this year agents functioning in a lot of more autonomous ways across marketing and sales and service um, and things like that. But I would say I could see a company with one person overseeing a
You
collection of
gotta have
agents.
oversight. Yeah, you
Yeah,
gotta
like
have oversight.
heavy human in the loop. But I think we're probably a few years away from a truly autonomous organization where some venture capital firm just says, we're just going to buy some GPUs from NVIDIA and we're going to, set this goal to make $1 billion in this space, and the AI is going to go and create the product and do all the marketing and do all like I just don't see that with all the current hurdles to reliability in AI agents. I think it might be a little time before that becomes a reality. I hope. I'm
Yeah.
The world's not ready for that to be possible.
No, no. Yeah, I mean yeah. I think the AI agent thing is certainly interesting, but it just feels like one of the most like overhyped sort of aspects of things right now. And
It's a lot of
speaking,
confusion.
yeah, and speaking of buying billions of dollars of NVIDIA chips,
Yeah.
let's talk about DeepSeek.
Yeah.
So, DeepSeek, wow, I mean, how it rocked the AI world, rocked the commerce of America, the stock market in kind of wild ways, literally like overnight. And you know, I don't know about you, but I have Nvidia stock. I was in California when this thing happened, so by the time I woke up, I mean the stock was already down. But I'm gonna
Yeah.
hold it anyway. I believe in the
I
company.
bought more. I'm not providing investing advice, but I
No,
bought
right.
more as soon
Yeah.
as it hit like 117. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's never going to be 117 again. Like
Right, right.
I'm getting back in.
Yeah. Uh, so this week, after the big DeepSeek blow up, Dario Amodei, Anthropic's CEO, who, I really admire, I know you do too,
Hmm.
he wrote a blog post sort of saying, okay, let's look at what's really happening here and kind of, did his best to help us peek under the covers and say, this isn't really as sensational as it seems. Um, that and all the big companies, Google has made a statement, Meta has made a statement right after the DeepSeek thing, saying, "Look, we're going ahead with these big multi-billion-dollar infrastructure investments with data centers as big as Manhattan." And so, where do you come out? I mean, what have you gleaned since we had this? Apocalypse. And basically, let's just review. Some people might not have really followed it, but um, you know, this is a startup in China. They were able to meet or exceed some of the performance requirements, performance expectations of some of the large LLMs that have required billions and billions of dollars of funding for what they claimed was a fraction of the time, a fraction of the price, and sort of demonstrating that we don't need these high end NVIDIA chips to perform, and kind of shook this the overarching strategy of AI to its core, at least temporarily. So now that the dust has settled a little bit, how are you coming out on it?
Yeah, so I think, the other piece of the story is there's obviously export controls in place that are supposed to limit the amount of NVIDIA chips that a Chinese AI
Hmm.
research lab could have access to.
Hmm.
So there was immediately some questions about, are they fully disclosing how many chips they actually have, because they would be illegal if they disclosed that they actually had 50,000 NVIDIA chips instead of however many they claimed they trained on. And I
Hmm.
think they claimed it was like $6 million. Well, the reality is the training run may have cost $6 million, but it seems, even as of this morning, that they probably invested like over $1 billion in everything, like the infrastructure, the
Oh, wow.
team, everything.
Yeah.
So it is not on its surface what the mainstream media made it out to appear, which is why when Nvidia's stock lost a $500 billion in 24 hours, like it was down like 17% or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I was like, this is a dramatic overreaction. Like this isn't changing investments in data centers and infrastructure. It's actually going to increase demand for NVIDIA chips because everyone's racing to build intelligence and to serve intelligence on your devices. And that's only going to increase. And we're going to have millions of robots built and autonomous vehicle. Like the demand for NVIDIA chips isn't going away. It just means that someone found a more efficient way to train, which they did. They had a bit of a breakthrough on efficiency. They still did achieve something that likely would have been achieved by an American lab in the next 3 to 6 months anyway. But it was the fact that a Chinese company did it that actually is what caused this overreaction. So they achieved something. That achievement is going to allow all the American labs to now copy it, which they're already doing, and that means they're going to be able to produce intelligence more efficiently themselves. So they're just going to buy more NVIDIA chips to create more intelligence. Like, it wasn't like this breakthrough stopped the need to have chips and like eliminated the need for data centers. There's an almost an infinite demand for the AI factories, the data centers, and the energy that takes that fuels them to to build intelligence. And we're just at the surface of that in society. Like, so
Mhm.
I don't know, like the whole thing is crazy, and it did. Like Nvidia had to make statements. You listed a bunch of other people had to make statements because they all had an earnings this week. Like Microsoft, I think, had their earnings. I think Meta had earnings. Tesla had earnings. Everyone knew they were going to get asked questions about this anyway. Um, so they had to come out. Now, the thing I thought was the funniest in all of this is every AI stock gets crushed and Apple goes up. And I think I
Mhm.
tweeted like Apple's AI is so bad they didn't even get hit with
Yeah,
like the worst day in AI stocks. They
yeah,
go up 3% when everybody else is going down because Apple Intelligence is useless. Like it's I thought that was like the funniest thing in the whole
yeah. Well, you've been like the perfect straight man here. Like you're just kind of like leading into topic into topic into topic because the
thing.
last thing I wanted to talk about is AI and marketing, and it's
Yeah.
a subject you and I talked about maybe 6 months or so ago. But it's just like every time those those Apple AI ads came on TV, I'd be like yelling at the TV, saying, "It's not there.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. What are you promoting?" And my wife would say, "What are you so upset about?" And it's just it seems to me. And then you look at Paul. I don't know if you saw these ads. I think it was like must have been college football or something. There are ads for of all things IBM Watson.
Like a
IBM
Watson X. I didn't
What?
see him, but
Oh, you didn't see it. Okay.
uh,
So, I mean, IBM is saying, we are the enterprise AI solution. And it's just like, where have you guys been? And so it's just like the you've got the only company that's doing any significant advertising about AI. You got Apple that really has nothing, and IBM that's been, gone for the last 10 years
mhm.
since Watson won Jeopardy. They've kind of, gone away, at least, on my radar screen. I when was the last time IBM Watson was mentioned on your podcast?
When I told the story about how I got started in AI in 2012 was probably the only time
Yeah,
we've ever talked
right.
about Watson.
Right. Right. So, you made a comment, I think it was at the end of last year, and you said the best productivity tool of 2024 was Notebook LM.
Mhm.
And we've had people in my community doing all kinds of great experiments with Notebook LM and just pushing it to the limits of different things it can do. And I would bet many people listening to this podcast, many people listening to your podcast, have never even really heard of Notebook LM. And it's like, why aren't there product managers here? My take is product Notebook LM was almost like a happy accident. Like Google just put this capability together and people learned on their own. It can do all these amazing things. But why isn't anybody thinking about product marketing in any of these companies?
I think because they're AI labs that had to all of a sudden become product companies, and that wasn't their intention. And they're still run by the AI engineers and entrepreneurs
Yeah.
who are all about just trying to build AGI and super intelligence. And they have to figure out how to also be product companies now in the process. And I think Google's got their own challenges of it's a behemoth company, and I think Notebook LM was in many ways an accident. I think it was like a five-person team, and they just kind of captured magic in a bottle somehow with it. And like the two main people got like viral on Twitter all of a sudden because they were talking about what they were building. I think they both left since then. Um, but yeah, I think that was what we found with Notebook LM, and even with like Google Deep Research. To Google's credit, they're now I think finding that they learned something on this where they can
Hmm.
productize like individual use cases.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I think you're starting to see that the more approachable you make AI, which sometimes means just making it super easy to understand an exact use case versus like, here's Gemini, it can do a million things, knowledge worker, like figure it out, or Copilot, whatever it is, like versus here's Notebook LM, it's really good at A, B, and C. And it's like, oh, I do A, B, and C. That's great. Let me play around with Notebook LM. And so
Hmm.
I think when you make things super tangible, which is why I'm still just in complete disbelief at how little OpenAI has supported their GPTs. Like, I
Mhm.
see these custom GPTs as like the key to adoption, and they've done nothing with them in 12 months since they came out with them, probably 14 months now.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. They struggle, and then you have the company that actually kind of grew up this way, which is Salesforce, and they're all on this agent force. And going back to these commercials, the one I was telling my wife last week, I was like, I don't get
Oh,
it. So
yeah.
like you have
Oh
Matthew
my gosh.
McConaughey sitting
Don't
in the
get it.
rain, and he's getting
Do
sprayed, and then Woody Harrelson over here. And I
yeah.
said to my wife, I'm like, so what are they saying that because they didn't have AI agents, they didn't know to
Yes.
not sit a customer on a street in the
Yes,
rain? Like
that's what they're saying.
I don't get it.
It's the worst use case ever. It confuses people even more.
I know. I literally have analyzed that ad like 5 times, and I can't come up with what they were implying was the
Oh,
situation.
yeah, it's just like, and anyway, well, it's just, I mean, to me, you and I, we've got, sort of an inherent marketing bent, a marketing mind, and it's like there's this opportunity for someone to just run with it and
Yeah,
become the brand. And there's going to be so much, there's going to be maybe fear, there's going to be consternation, there's going to be, um people are going to have to make decisions. Well, Google is a name that I know. I don't really know, what's Anthropic, what is this, what are they trying to do? And it just seems like there's an opportunity for someone to stand out and say, we're the trusted brand. We're never going to let you down. And maybe maybe nobody can say that right now.
yeah.
Maybe
I don't
that's
know if they
part of the
can.
problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I-
or maybe they just say, we want to stay we want to stay in the shadows for now, because right now we're just breaking every law we can to get to AGI.
Well, OpenAI is making a ton of money. I saw the other day that I think it was like a $340 million run rate on, or something in that range. That might be their valuation with their new round, but somewhere like 300 million run rate on the new reasoning model alone, like the
Oh,
$200 a month
really?
license thing. So
Really?
apparently, yeah, demand's been
Oh
insane
my
for it. So
gosh.
they just keep, I don't know, they got out ahead of everybody, and
They did.
they're making a ton of money. And I think they
Yeah.
saw they're raising like 40 million is the rumor, at a $340 million valuation, which is like double where they were last year or something like that. Like it's just crazy.
Well, and I think if there is a company that could run out ahead and become a brand, I think it would be OpenAI. Simply because, I mean, Google has shown decade after decade that they really don't understand consumers. They don't understand marketing. And if you think about when Google brings out a new model, and they had that terrible experience about a year ago where they like faked it.
Yeah.
And then, OpenAI, they've had really cool demos of their new capabilities. They've got three or four young people sitting around a table saying, "Oh, wow, we worked on this thing, and I can't wait to show it to you. Look at what
Hmm.
this." I mean, it's just like, all right, this is human. I can understand. I like these young, friendly faces talking to me about AI. So anyway, well,
Yeah.
I'm sure this is a topic that's good. It's not going to be over today. So, Paul, I'll let you go back to your chronically boring world of AI. I know you probably have a lot of work to do today, and I just want to thank everyone for joining us. I never ever take you for granted. The show's now in its 13th year, and we're still growing and getting new subscribers. And boy, I'm always amazed at that. I'm amazed I have a feeling every day, like the first day I ever got a comment on a blog post. It's like, wow, what happened here? People are spending time with me. I've never lost that feeling of joy. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time on the Marketing Companion.